Hey, Jeff here again. This is, I want to talk about the questions I saw on Facebook about bank loan, the whole thing of the United States for student loans, and should we kind of let people not pay for them, which I don't think we should do, but because then it gives another kind of behavior. But I think one of the interesting things here on this one, and I've made a couple videos specifically on the commoditization of health and the commoditization of education. Okay, so those are, I've thought about this and talked about it more. But now here in this book on Understanding Working with Americans, I want to talk more about this, specifically about how we've done it in the United States. I mean, and I've lived in, so I grew up in the States, and I went to my college years. I did my first 3 years of college in a specialized associate's degree. It cost me $6,000 a year that I actually worked to pay for at the same time. So I didn't just go to school; I worked for it to pay for it, right? Then I went on to do another year to get my bachelor's degree, and then I went on to do another bachelor's degree that I paid for, and then I got sent off to France for a year on a fellowship, which allowed me to. And during that time, for the first 3 years, I actually did I took out a student loan for over 3 years for equivalent of 1 year, $6,000, so about $2,000 a year, and it was $6,000 a year for school, so. And that kept getting deferred. The payment for 8% salary May kept getting deferred, right? And I went to France for after my second bachelor's degree for fellowships got deferred because I was a student kind of thing. I was intending to come back. I was supposed to go back to my master's at Portland State, which I did do, and teach. And then I get a stipend for teaching, and I get free education from that. Free, at least the tuition was, it was basically waived. I want to say free. It's waived because I was giving offering a service, right? Which the equivalent of that is quite a bit of money. Get the stipend. So I did that year. I did my master's degree, and then I went back to France as a student, but under student visa. But I actually had it was a student exchange. But I was actually a teaching assistant again, or graduate research assistant for 2 different departments. I got sent over again, so all my tuition was waived again. Through the university program, the exchange program, and I got another stipend to live in France. And so I came over, did another master's in linguistics here in France, and but here in France it would have only cost $200. So I was actually we're waiving studies that would have cost you way more. Because I was a student exchange program. Then I stayed on to France and actually did the doctoral cycle studies, and so here it only cost $200 a year, right? And I kept working. I was working on the side too. I was working at the same time. And then I got into industry, and so by the time I finished all these studies, the main set of studies, I finally had to reimburse those $6,000, which I did in 18 months, pretty quickly. Just got rid of it. Didn't do much other thing. Just got rid of those loans, right? Had just gotten married and stuff, and so just got rid of those loans. And so we didn't start our marriage in debt at all. I mean, at the beginning, a little bit of debt, got rid of it. But then I kept. So during that time, I had only paid $200 a year, the equivalent of $200 a year. The equivalent of $200. It's not free. Don't say free education, folks. Don't say free. It's not free. It's affordable. It's very affordable. Then I went into work in industry and businesses, and so I continued on to actually do doctoral programs at other places too, because I wanted to continue to do research. So I continued to only pay for $200 a year, but I didn't have any loans to defer. It's just my own personal research and extra stuff while working at businesses and stuff. But only $200 a year. And the thing that is important to see is that there isn't a lot of services with it, right? You don't get all these. You're not paying for a ton of services. You're just paying for the ability to be able to do research or get your education, right? It's really teaching focused. It's education focused. So I think that the important thing. I'm in an animal park here. Got people talking, but the important thing to see is that will this change the United States? I mean, my kids, I'll say too, my kids grew up in the French education system. One of them went on to vocational school. Didn't cost that much. We went through a private high school, but it wasn't that much. Wasn't that much at all. It was very affordable, and again subsidized but affordable. So we get a cooking degree and getting cooking diploma and all that. Another child is in another high school. But the thing here is, which I think is really important to see, is that and I work in some different international committees and boards and stuff, like the Linguist List, where we've got different people. It's a lot of academics, okay, a lot of professors and deans and provosts and all that kind of stuff. And I talk with them, and a lot of them actually say, who are kind of the dean and provost level, they all say that the American schools, the reason why the education is so expensive in the U.S. is because of the sports programs. It's the sports programs that generate so much cost. So all the focus on sports for the American culture, because sports are important, does it. And it's true, because there was not a whole lot of sports in France. It's not a heavy thing at all in education, because education is through education, right? You do sports, a different thing. You go out there, you do your association, do your sports. Another thing too is that the UK, I saw one of my colleagues in appears in the industry put a thing about education in the UK, and I said, well, that's because the education is because you have sports. There's not sports in the universities. It just doesn't. It's not at all an important thing. He says that's a U.S. problem. So this all keeps coming back around to is why is education a commodity? Why is it a commodity in the U.S.? It's because we commoditized it, and it's because of sports and all this thing. I mean, it's a whole thing. It's a whole package, right? It's not just the education part. So can student loans, can we reverse this? I don't think so. I think that we've gone past the point of no return because people don't want to pay taxes. And again, this whole book, I explain all these different things to understanding Americans and working with Americans, because we have a society that doesn't want to have a government. In general, I'm not saying it's a 50-50 split, or maybe you can see it's all about politics, right? But it's created a system in which we've got accustomed to being in this, and now we've created a system in which you get education that has to have sports, and so we have to spend a lot of money. We have to have a lot of services, so you have to spend a lot of money. And then to find programs that don't have it, we complain that doesn't have all the services, right? So it just goes, it's a vicious circle. And to go back where you're not spending all this money and not spending all this stuff, it's kind of a complicated thing. So I don't know. It's something to think about. I think it's a kind of important thing to kind of think about as you go around, and can we deal with these student loans? And I think it's not a good idea to have people to just they got their student loans, they borrowed money, and then the relieve and say don't pay it. I think that's not a good thing. That creates another thing that's not good, because you're showing people that they can actually beat the system. That's not good. I think people just don't get the education. And then you got a lot of people too in the States that they'll do the degree and they won't actually use the degree. Not everybody does that, but I know a lot of people do. I've got a lot of friends that do that. They do another completely different thing. Now, you can get a job in another thing, but if you don't actually use your education that you got, then why'd you get a specialized degree to do it? Something to think about. So, just a lot of things to think about. I mean, I've been able to, I'm still working what I did. Well, I've done other things too. I've done other jobs and done other things. I keep coming back to the thing I wanted to do in the beginning because I chose to do it. And I keep coming back to that because I like it. It doesn't actually make as much money as I can do in other things, but I don't care. But I didn't kill myself, and I didn't put myself into debt from the beginning by doing that. And I think that's, hey, if you want to get around this whole thing, come to Europe, right? Just come to Europe. You got to learn another language to do that, right? So that's another challenge. So I'm kind of smiling about it, but it's a sad thing, and I have to explain this to a lot of Europeans about why the situation is in the United States, and it's a complex thing, and a lot of Europeans have a difficulty understanding why Americans want to spend so much time for education and then get into debt and then get stuck with this whole student loan problem. Really interesting thing to kind of discuss with people with. And they say, why do they do that? Why do the Americans do that? Well, that's why I'm making the video. So hope my high school peers, I made a little video. give me your thoughts. Again, I don't believe in free education. It's affordable education, but I think that we've gotten in a situation that might be point of no return. I don't know if it's a point of no return, but I think it might be, at least for the American culture. So what are your thoughts? Thanks, Jack.